Welcome in another edition of Green and Growing. How are we doing? We are doing just fine here. At least I am. I haven't checked with Marzion to see how he's doing yet. You can follow Nathan Marzion on Twitter at Nathan Marzion. You can follow me at Sparky Radio. Check out all the fun interviews that I do over at 1250 amthefan.com. I have not done a Super Bowl interview yet. As of Monday night, as we're doing this, I don't plan on doing a Super Bowl interview either because it doesn't really include the Packers. But I did do a Curry Long podcast on Monday. You can check that out in relation to the Packers and how far away they are from, say, the Chiefs or the San Francisco 49ers. Download that on your Odyssey app today, as well as your Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your favorite podcast at. Nathan Marzion, how are you doing, my friend? I see that the Marquette Golden Eagles hanging out now in the top 5 once again in the standings. That has to put a smile on your face, I would assume.
Yeah, I'm doing very good. These past couple of days have been good to my basketball team. So this is probably the best that the vibes have been basically since the beginning of the season with both of these teams. So I am happy, and it's just good to see the Bucks playing better again and getting wins. I think that they've been playing better for a couple of weeks now, but the wins weren't really coming. They were playing, without several key guys, but still missing Chris, but they played awesome tonight. And again, obviously, as you said, Marquette top 5, they're rolling. So it's a good time to be a Bucks and Marquette basketball fan. I don't know, are the Badgers playing well right now? Basketball? I haven't
No,
checked.
and I feel actually, Karin,
I'm sorry.
I feel partly responsible for that, to be honest with you, because last week I interviewed Jim Polzine, columnist for the Wisconsin State Journal for the 1250 website, and they had lost a couple, and I was like, big deal, couple losses, whatever else. And I put on there, Jim Polzine talks Badgers' success this season is the name of it, and everything was positive about the interview, and they haven't won since. So yeah, I'm hoping I didn't completely jinx them necessarily. That's a whole nother topic if we did a college basketball one, as far as who really is the better coach, Shaka or Greg Gard. I think that would be a fun conversation and a conversation to be had, or a debate to be had. I'm sure you've had it on Twitter over the years or the last couple of years, but I would like to have one on the radio station if I ever get a local show back. So we'll probably just do it here on the podcast at some point in the offseason. Okay, Nathan Marzion, Bucks win 112-95 over the Denver Nuggets. We'll start with that. I also want to get into Giannis MVP conversation with Joel Embiid now out of that conversation. Opens the door probably for Giannis. We'll get to that. Thoughts on what we've seen here so far with Patrick Beverley. And for the record, I still can't stand that dude. Still a punk. Nothing has changed from my perspective on that whatsoever. He's our punk. And I get that. But that crap that he pulled over the weekend, where he goes running up and bumps that dude, that was ridiculous. It just was. Thanasis is up and cheering. Yeah, that's funny. Ha, ha, ha. Right. And if he would have won and did that to Giannis on an opposing team, Thanasis would have wanted to fight him. So, I mean, again, I get it. He's on your team. Now it's funny. Now everybody's cheering. Yay, Pat Bev. Okay. But just understand that he is going to do that. And it's going to happen in the playoffs. He's going to do some dumb stuff like that in the playoffs. It's going to instigate a shoving match and so forth. Do you know what I was thinking about, Marzion? Do you know where he should have got traded to that would have fit him perfectly? The Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler. That he would have fit in perfect on that basketball team down in Miami, more so than necessarily here. But they've played better with him, no question. Defensively, they've played better. They look better. He's an extension of the coaching staff, like we said when we talked about it after the trades went down on Thursday night. I said, I like it because he knows Doc's system. He knows how this all works. And it's pretty much played out to that point. Like, there is a different energy when he comes off the bench that first time. And it's happened so far every time he's come off the bench. Now, it's early, small sample size. Will it happen every time? Don't know. But so far, you can definitely tell when he's on the floor.
Yeah, for sure. And that's all you wanted from him, is just be a defensive presence, be someone that you can definitely, as you said, tell when he's on the floor. You can see the impact he's making, kind of like we've seen, several times with Andre Jackson this year, where he comes in and it's like, okay, you notice him kind of flying around. You notice him pressing guys up near half court and getting in there, right up in their space. So he's done, he hasn't been anything spectacular through 2 games, but it's like nobody's expecting him to be. And he's just got to be someone that can provide you some defensive resistance and really be that kind of spark plug off the bench on defense. But man, overall, this team, like, I don't want to give too much credit just to Patrick Beverley, because this whole team has been, and I know it really just if you're looking at the scores, it's really only been the last 2 games that they have had good defensive performances when you look at the number of points they're giving up. I'm telling you, it's been basically a week and a half, 2 weeks now of mainly good defensive performances. It started 2 weeks ago against the Nuggets on the road, Doc's first game coaching. And I want to say they gave up like in the 110s somewhere in there. And they were, I think it was 113, 107, something like that. Played a good defensive game in that game. The only really bad loss has been to Portland, because that was a game you were fully healthy. You're playing a bad Portland team, and they lost that game. But other than that, like, all these games have been either games that they were just very shorthanded, but most of them they still played well defensively. They played well defensively against the Suns. And then the Hornets, you could say, well, it's the Hornets, but they did it tonight now again against the Nuggets. The defensive intensity has just been so much better. They look so much more active. Everyone tonight, I think every single player that was on the court tonight was pretty locked in defensively. Dame was good defensively. Beasley was pretty locked in defensively. Bobby Portis was a lot better than he's been defensively for most of the season. Obviously, Pat Connaughton had some nice plays defensively. AJ Green's been really good defensively. Like, they all were just locked in. And sometimes I feel like this was what we've seen from them for a lot of the big games. It seems like, in that Denver Nuggets, or in that Boston game, they played pretty well defensively early in the season not early in the season, but like a month ago when they destroyed Boston. They've had some other bigger games like that, again, 2 weeks ago against the Nuggets, that they started to lock in defensively. And the fact that they're doing it more consistently now is what makes me happy. It's not just happening against good teams. It's happening, again, we just saw it against the Hornets in a game where they could have gotten lackadaisical. They could have, really come out and let the Hornets hang around with them. No, they didn't. They completely shut them down, held both of these teams to under 100 points. Again, this isn't something that just started today. I feel like a lot of people are going to think that, really just today and the last two games are the only times their defense has looked good. This has been about 2 weeks now. This has been solid defense for about 2 weeks. And even that Jazz game that they lost on the second end of a back-to-back, they played great defense for 3 quarters in that game. And then the Jazz went crazy in the fourth, and it was like, okay, you can live with one bad quarter on the second end of a back-to-back, but to play this many good defensive quarters and have this many good defensive stretches is something we have not seen from them consistently all season long. We never saw it with Griff. And it just seems like there's so much more buy-in with Doc. And someone tweeted that, I retweeted it during the game, where they said, buy-in is such an important thing for a coach, and Griff never seemed to have it. Those guys just never seemed to be all in. Especially that core was never really all in on the defensive scheme, the offensive scheme, anything he was doing. And with Doc, you can just tell that they are way more bought in, and that they are giving just more effort on the defensive end consistently. So it's been very, very nice to see.
How do I say this without pissing off a bunch of people? What did that say about the character of the players on this basketball team, that they're giving more effort for a different coach than they were giving for the last coach? Shouldn't the effort be pretty much the same, because you're playing to win basketball games and you're playing to, get to the next level, regardless of who the hell the coach is at this point? I don't disagree with you. I agree. The energy, especially in transition, is far better than what it was before. Jay Crowder, A+, dude, by the way. I've never had an issue with Crowder hustling, but like, if you watch them coming back down the floor, he's always running hard getting back. Can't say that necessarily for everybody all the time, but Crowder's one of those guys that's always hustling getting back. I saw Ty Windish of the Eurostep podcast, who we have on from time to time, him and his buddy Rohan Kadi. They do a great job. And I saw him tweet out earlier, quote tweeted an old tweet of his from like January 23rd or something, where he pretty much told Bucks fans, look, I don't care if Doc Rivers is coming in here or whoever. It's not going to matter. Not going to do anything. This team isn't going to be that much different than they were under Adrian Griffin or Joe Prunty. He quote tweeted that tweet. It pretty much said, yeah, I screwed up. I was wrong. This is much better than kind of what they've been under the last two. It says numerous things. Number one, it says, like you said, maybe the buy-in wasn't there. Number two, it puts into perspective and question what exactly was Mutombo and Griffin and Prunty teaching these guys that Doc was able to fix within a couple of days. Well, literally, like a couple of days. They played in Denver. That was a West Coast trip. And immediately in walkthroughs, he's installing stuff with his terminology, and the defense was essentially fixed that quick, to where you saw them make progress that quick. Griffin and that coaching staff had an entire damn training camp to figure this out with this group. And I know he got thrown Lillard, fine. But Doc knew what he had. and he figured it out quick and made the correct changes. And now this basketball team that hasn't looked like this necessarily all year long now really does look like a team that we all thought it should have looked like at the start of the season, right, Nathan? Now this looks like a team that you go, okay, this is a team that can compete to come out of the East and contend for an NBA Finals. And I think when Adrian Griffin was here, even though their record was good, I feel like a lot of people questioned how far they could really get with Adrian Griffin.
Yeah, and again, rightfully so. I mean, I was again one of those people. I was holding out hope because I didn't think he was getting fired. We talked about this many
Neither
times
did
where
I.
we just were like, "This is the guy for the season." We're gonna have to hope it will get better. Look for any signs it will get better. There weren't many, but it was just you're kind of just like, okay, let's hope that they can turn this thing around. But it was taking just so much longer than expected, and they just were still struggling to ever blow teams out, let alone good teams. Really the only time they did it was against Boston. And again, for Doc to come in and to all of a sudden, I mean, I'm looking at the defensive ratings they've had basically since he's gotten here. Even the game before that, this is including the game before Adrian Griffin got fired. It's that last Pistons game. They now have in 10 of their last 12 games, they've allowed a defensive rating better than 114, which is basically a borderline top 10 defensive rating. Like I think the 10th best team has about a 114 defensive rating. So 10 of the last 12 games, they've been that good defensively. And I think according, my numbers are correct here, my counting is correct, they only did that in about 15 of the first 42 games. So it's just been so much more consistent from a what they're allowing defensively. And again, one of those that they didn't allow that good of a defensive rating was that Jazz game where they were good for 3 quarters. It was just one terrible quarter that killed them. So I don't even even that game wasn't like some terrible defensive game. Then, the other one came when they were very shorthanded. So it's just been so much more consistent immediately, basically since that firing happened. They've just all of a sudden been more locked in. They seem to just be rotating better. They seem to be giving more effort. They seem to be, they're not pressing up as high. The scheme just looks better. So it's been a combination of several things, but they finally look to be in a position where their defense is not going to consistently kill them. This isn't going to consistently be them outscoring teams 138 to 132. And that will still happen sometimes. They're still going to have bad defensive games. They're not going to be great, from here on out. It's not like they're just going to be an amazing defensive team, but they don't need to be amazing. They just needed, we've said all year, just don't be bad. Don't be 20th, 25th, 27th, be, 12th, 14th, somewhere in there where you say, okay, if you have the 12th best defense and the second best offense, first best offense, yeah, you can win a championship that way. That's perfectly fine. So it's just good to see that they finally have that buy-in and they finally seem to be really, showing some competence on that end of the court, because we know what their offense will be when they're all healthy. It still hasn't even, this wasn't even their best offensive game. It was a good offensive game, but you still didn't get a ton from Dame. He had a nice little stretch there in the third quarter, but the refs kind of took him out of this game early with a few dumb foul calls. And, you didn't have Chris. So it's like this offense still was not even close to at full strength or full firepower, but they've looked so much better. So again, it's just so many good signs from these last couple games.
I'm not sure which referee you dislike the most in the NBA, which referee you see and you're just like, oh God, here we go. It's Scott Foster for me. I mean, I don't know about everybody else. Well, I mean, Chris Paul, I think agrees with me, but for me, Scott Foster is the guy that I just cannot stand seeing Scott Foster reffing a Bucks NBA game. Do you have a referee that you really just cannot stand when you see him on the floor in a Bucks game? You're like, oh boy, here we go. It's going to be a long night again.
It's definitely, I mean, Scott Foster's always one. And then, I know like Tony Brothers isn't very good either. And then the guy that I don't remember what his name is, but the guy that ejected Giannis earlier in the season, and then he was doing another Bucks game. Like, I don't know if it was the exact same teams. It might've been Bucks Pistons again, when they played them in that back-to-back.
Right.
So, I don't know. That guy all of a sudden is on my list. Again, I don't know his name. So I guess that's good for him that I don't like. That's the problem, is if you're a ref and they know your name, it's probably not a good thing. You want to be the ref. Yeah. So I guess it's good that I don't know his name, but I just know that guy made me upset when he kicked Giannis out for looking at a guy for 2 seconds.
What about the Bobby Portis ejection tonight in this game against the Nuggets, where he fakes punting the ball and then just tosses it up in the air and our buddy Scott Foster double tees him? and kicks him out of the game. Again, the game was over. And I'm watching the game, and Kay goes to me. She's like, "What is he getting all upset about? The game's over. Like, why are you getting so emotional? Nothing is going on here." But Bobby Portis was hot, and had been hot. He walks up the floor. Doc Rivers looks at him, talks to him, and is like, "Dude, you just got kicked out." He knew he got kicked out. Bobby vents to Doc about it. Doc's like, "All right, man, you're good. Go back, take a shower. It's all done." Um, Again, I mean, you like the competitiveness and all that type of stuff, but why deal with a fine and losing money when a game was done, man? Like, you got to be able to control yourself a little bit.
I know, but these guys are competitive. I want to give the Bucks some extra credit tonight because, and I don't usually complain about the refs, but I'm going to do it here, and I think it's valid to do it when your team wins, especially in blowout fashion, because it shows that hey, my team won, and I'm still going to complain about the refs a little bit. Not just going to do it when they lose, but that first quarter especially, and it kind of went on throughout the game, but that first quarter especially was seriously, I think the worst officiating I've seen all year, like from in any game where I was like, this is nuts. They had 2 times Dame got fouled and didn't get the call. Then he had like 2 calls on him, 2 calls on Giannis that were BS on the other end that took both of them out of the game. You had like a missed travel on Jokic and then a phantom foul. You had like guys are stepping out of bounds and they're not called, like Aaron Gordon's out of bounds on the baseline. They're not calling it. I was like, is this a joke? Like, what in the heck is going on? It was just incredible. And so I want to give the Bucks extra credit for still, despite having that awful officiated first quarter, that genuinely I think was probably 6 or 7 points in favor of the Nuggets because you genuinely took 4 points off the board for Dame. And then you took out those guys with getting both of them 2 fouls. You took both of them out of the game for like 3 minutes longer than they should have been. I know the Bucks actually played pretty well in that stretch, but still, they like basically gave the Nuggets points, and you were still up 5 at the end of the first. They really did play a good game throughout here to be able to be in control that much with bad officiating. And again, with Dame being basically out of the game, he comes in, gets another terrible call for his 3rd foul where he has to come out of the game like right away again. And it was just like, man, the refs have literally taken him out of the game, and the Bucks were still dominating. So it was good to see. By the way, how awesome do you think it is, and how like refreshing do you think it is for Dame to be like the dude's in foul trouble? He puts up 4 points in the first half, and his team is up 20 on the reigning champs. Like that's just such a different thing that he's had all of his career, where he's just been carrying teams, and in a game like this would need to put up 40, 45 points. It's like, it's got to be so nice for him to just kind of watch Giannis do his thing, watch the rest of these guys, pick up the slack a little bit, and he can be in foul trouble and not have to put up a ton of shots, and it's just kind of like we're still cruising. So that was just something I kind of noticed in the first half, or I just thought about in the first half.
I would like to address one other player on this roster, if you don't mind, because we're getting to a level now with this said player that is sad. Maybe, I don't know.
No, I thought we were going to talk happy. I thought we were going to talk about AJ Green.
No. Not AJ Green. Talk about a different player. That I really think we're getting to the point of this kind of being sad.
Are we going to have the Giannis conversation?
No, not Giannis either. The Giannis MVP conversation is next after we get done with
Giannis might need. Do we need to talk about like when do we talk about upgrading Giannis? Because it seems like he's being a little selfish out there, taking all these shots.
Well, hopefully, yeah. Okay, you're trolling now, but I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to let you troll like Hendrick Perkins, who called this a must-win game on ESPN apparently earlier tonight for the Bucks. It's a must-win game for Milwaukee. They got to win this one. And I don't follow NBA on ESPN. I certainly don't follow Hendrick Perkins. And I saw people replying to him that I follow, and I'm like, guys, he's just trolling all of you. Would you quit? Please, just reacting to all the crap he says. The man's a walking troll. Just go away from Kendrick Perkins. I'm telling you, I'm getting to the point. If I see people retweeting anything that dude says, I'm just going to stop following you because I'm done. I don't want to deal with it anymore. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. I'm talking about Thanasis for a second. Okay. So Thanasis got gone after hard on social media a couple weeks back for how bad he looked and pulled clips from highlights or whatever else. It was so bad. Marcus Johnson brought it up on the air of people being hard on Thanasis and da. Okay, fine. Then over the weekend, Thanasis, I'm guessing he's been working on this for months, does the whole sham god dribble thing, right? Beats the defender, scores, goes crazy. Social media lights up. Everybody's retweeting it. Da. So tonight he comes into the game in usual victory cigar formation, comes into the game, and the crowd goes crazy. All right, we're at home. He's in the game. Let's go. Every time the guy touches the ball and takes a shot, everybody's like, oh, oh, oh. That's all every time. Do you know what it reminded me of? It reminds me of when you're watching, you're at your kid's youth game or whatever the case may be, and there's that kid on the team that is like horrible, like doesn't belong on the team, like end of the bench, whatever the case may be. And it could be at any level. It could be T-ball, it could be all the way up, right? But usually every team at this level, I'm not talking about travel ball, because travel ball, normally most of the kids are pretty decent. But I'm just talking like the youth little league or whatever. And when that kid makes contact after striking out, not doing anything, everybody cheers. It could be a foul ball. It doesn't matter. You're going to cheer because you feel good that kid made contact. Like, that's going to put a smile on his face. You're happy for him. I feel like that's the level we've reached with Thanasis. I really do. I feel like as a fan base, we've now become those proud parents of, oh my God, he made a basket. Yay, we're so happy for you. He's an NBA player. Can we act like he's an NBA player getting paid money? Please, can we act like it? Because we are now at the point of acting like he's the worst kid on like the little league team that never makes contact with the ball. That's what it feels like right now, as this fan base is kind of like hoping he makes a basket. It's sad. It's really, really sad.
Sparky, not every NBA player should be expected to come in and like they can, play good ball. Like some of these guys are end of the bench, they're just whatever. And the teams do this. This would happen all the time with like some of these meme type of players, like Brian Scalabrine back in the day.
Right. He was the victory cigar for the Bulls. So when he came in, it was over and everybody would start chanting Scalabrine. Scalabrine. Yes, correct.
We're not like we're the only fan base who's ever done this for a player. Like it's more just like about because it's funny and it's fun to like want Thanasis to do something funny. Do something cool. Like if he makes a bucket, it's cool.
You said it. I know. Do something funny. You're right.
Yes, because it is funny, dude. It's like that move.
Yes.
That move he had on Friday night. Oh my goodness. Like that was amazing. Like it was hilarious. It was a great move. It was
a great move.
How can you not love that? How can you? And it blew up on social media. It was
of course it did. It was Thanasis. Yes, of course it blew up. And it was Shamgod's move. I tell you. Okay, whatever. I just had to get that out because it's been driving me nuts since that whole thing blew up. When he came in tonight and the crowd reacted the way they did to him, I was like, oh my God, we've reached that point with this dude. We're kind of throwing a pity party every time he's in the game for Thanasis at this point. All right, take a quick time. I'll come back other side. Want to talk about Giannis's MVP chances of winning this thing. Because let's be honest, back in November, December, I don't think Nathan nor I thought he really had a legitimate shot at probably winning MVP. But with Embiid now out because of missed games, this kind of opens the race back up a little bit, I think. We'll talk about that next. Green and Growing podcast. Download it on your Odyssey app or if you download your favorite podcast app. That's up next. Hey, it's Sparky, Fifer, 1250 AM The Fan. Check out the interviews I do over there at 1250amthefan.com. Nathan Marzion is over there. Follow him on Twitter at Nathan Marzion. You can follow me at Sparky Radio. Bucks crush, and I mean crush, the defending champion Denver Nuggets in Milwaukee earlier this evening before we record this podcast, which is a beautiful thing. Let's now talk about Giannis a little bit here. And kind of where do you think he stands right now in this MVP race, Nathan? And if, you're listening to the podcast and you want to tweet at us, you can do that as well. Let us know where you think Giannis stands. Is he in the top 3 in the MVP race now? I feel like he's in the top 3 for the MVP race, especially now that Embiid is out of the race because of games played.
Yeah, Embiid obviously would have been the front runner with the season he was having, but he's out now. I mean, it's basically... He's for sure in the top 4. I think he should be top 2. If not, I mean, honestly, I think there's a decent argument for him to be 1. And I'm not saying I expect him to win it, but if you actually look at how good he's been, there is more than there's definitely an argument for him to be 1. The Bucks are, I know it hasn't been great this season, but they are, the number 3 team in the East right now. This isn't like they're sitting at the 7th seed or something. The guys that he's really competing with are Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jokic, of course, is always in there, and I think Luka would be the other one. It's kind of those guys, and then it's Giannis. Giannis is averaging his highest point total of his career. He's averaging his highest assists of his career. He's shooting the best percentage from the floor of his career. He's gotten his mid-range going lately. He's gotten even his 3-point going a little bit lately. He's, I mean, in my opinion, better on defense than any of those guys. I know Shea's a pretty good defender, but Giannis is better on defense than him, and Giannis is better on defense than Jokic or Luka by far. So I'm just saying, I think there's a decent argument for Giannis to be the MVP. When you just, his efficiency has been absurd. Like, it's the number of games where he's putting up like 60-70% from the field has been remarkable. I want to say, I'm going to look at the numbers right now really quick, but this was his 30th game out of 52 this season that he shot 60% from the field or better. And to put that into perspective, he did that in 23 out of 62 games last year. So he did it in about a third of his games last year, and he's doing it in almost 2/3 of his games this year. It's just like, and this, I mean, credit can go to Dame too for the gravity he takes off of Giannis and allowing him to have more one-on-one opportunities. But the efficiency has been like mind-boggling, and it's just he's been so good. The passing, I think he's averaging like 8 point something assists over the last like month and a half, which is the best in that long of a stretch in his whole career. So like he's becoming like almost a triple double type of guy.
Right.
And it's, you know, I know he doesn't have a crazy number of triple doubles, but it's like he's having more games where he's getting 8, 9, 10 assists, 11 assists than he'd had in the past. And it's just like the offense is running through him, and it's been, you know, really, really good. I mean, I think people still want to see it run a little bit more through Dame at times, but like he has been a fantastic number one option this year. And it's been great to watch. And I think people are kind of underrating it because the Bucks have been, in air quotes, disappointing. Even though the record's been good, Giannis has not been the reason for that disappointment at all. But I just think people have kind of overlooked him as an MVP candidate because when you think of, you know, the best teams right now, you're not really thinking of the Bucks because they've been kind of disappointing.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the best teams. The Boston Celtics have the best record in basketball, 77% win percentage. I did not hear a Celtic get named in the MVP race.
Well, yeah,
Minnesota has the best win percentage, 69% in the West. I did not hear a Minnesota Timberwolves get named in that conversation. The Clippers are second, it's second in the West, third in basketball. I did not hear Clipper.
Kawhi could be there. Kawhi, I forgot to mention Kawhi. He could be there.
Okay, so Kawhi. Then Cleveland. No mention there of Cleveland. Oklahoma City then is in that conversation as well. Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, again, the Bucks are at 64%. Oklahoma City's at almost 68% winning percentage. Then Denver is at 66, almost 67%. That's, to me, if he's going to win this, they're going to have to be at least second in the East. I don't think they're going to catch Boston, but they at least got to be second in the East in front of Cleveland. I think they've got to be there. And I think the win percentage has to be a lot closer than it is currently to say Oklahoma City, the Clippers, and Denver, because otherwise that could possibly work against them. I mean, the man's coach got fired in the middle of the season. Like, has anybody ever won an MVP whose coach got fired in the middle of the season? Has that ever happened in NBA history? See, I got you stumped now.
I don't know.
I got you stumped now, huh?
I don't know how to look this up. I'm trying to think of
I don't know how to look it up either. I'm just saying. I mean, for a coach to get fired middle of the season, they go, "Oh yeah, that's why MVP his coach got fired middle of the year." To me, that's a tough sell. I agree with you on the numbers. Like, numbers wise, he should be. I mean, yeah, I'm with you all the way. I just think there's some things that go into this where if you're voting, like, okay, I'm going to vote Giannis as MVP and his coach got fired. He kind of had a say in who his coach was going to be. That dude got canned, but he's the MVP of the league. I mean, I guess he's kind of the MVP of the league because did Giannis have any say in getting Griffin essentially booted out of here to get Doc Rivers into it? I don't think he did. But if he did, then maybe he was the MVP after all. He made a hire, made a mistake, got rid of him, and then helped to bring Doc Rivers here. I don't know. And again, this is all just me just talking, spitballing here about Giannis. But if it's based on numbers, I think he's the MVP. If it's just based on numbers and what he does, I think Giannis is the MVP. I guess my second one would be SGA, right? I mean, that's probably my second guy. I haven't watched enough of Kawhi this year in the Clippers to know one way or the other what he's doing. You would know more about that than I do. I don't watch a ton of Clipper basketball. But to me, it would be Giannis and SGA and then Joker. But if Denver continues to fall down the standings in the West, and the Bucks go up, I would think that would take the Joker out of it, because before Denver's been the 1 seed, and that's how Joker wins it. Denver's the 3 or the 4 in the West. I don't see how he wins it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has the same thing with Giannis, where if they are third or worse in their conference, it's probably going to go to someone else because they want to give it to someone new at that point. Like, if you're just going based on how good they are on the court when they're out there, Giannis and Jokic are probably always going to be, 1 and 2 in that conversation. I think that they are the two best players in the league. Embiid in the regular season, sure, you can throw him in there, but he just isn't playing enough games. But yeah, I mean, I like I said, I'm not predicting that Giannis will win it, or that as you said, with the coach getting fired, with them being pretty disappointing for most of this season, and just the narrative around them, I don't see him winning the MVP. But just looking at how he's been on the court, like, there is surely an argument for it because of the efficiency stuff. I mean, we're used to him putting up 30, 10, and 5, 30, 12, and 5, whatever. Like, that's what he's done for 5 years. But to do it on over 60% from the field, no player in NBA history has ever put up 30 plus points a game on 60 plus percent shooting from the field, ever. Nobody ever, Wilt Chamberlain, anyone. And so it's like, when you look at it, you're like, okay, I mean, I know obviously his field goal percentage is going to be higher than the average players because of where he gets his shots, but I don't care. If you're getting higher percentage shots, you're getting higher percentage shots. Like, I don't feel bad about that just because he's 7 foot tall. Like, that makes him a better player. So nobody has ever scored this many points on, this efficiently from the field as Giannis has done, just getting to his spots, getting close to the paint. The touch around the rim has been better than it has been in, his whole career. And he's gotten a little bit of that in between game down a little bit again. And as I said, his 3-point shot has come around just a little bit, like, lately, the last month or so, and the mid-range stuff. So, and then, I mean, again, I already mentioned it, but the passing's been another thing that you're like, okay, he's scoring more efficiently than he ever has before. And he's also, creating shots for others better than he ever has before. And he's just a better playmaker than he ever has been before. So just several aspects of his game, I look at and say, okay, well, he won 2 MVPs and he's a lot better in these aspects right now than he was during those MVP seasons. I don't think anyone besides Embiid is having a ridiculously good enough season to justify, like, okay, give them the award for sure over, Giannis, who is now better than he was in his 2 MVP seasons. So that's why I'm like, he should have just as good a chance as anyone. Like, there's not that guy, now that Embiid's out of it, there's not that guy that's averaging 36 points a game on ridiculous, and just putting up 40 points every night. I know he's averaging a lot of points, but I don't think it's as many as Embiid was, and not as consistently. But I think Giannis has as good a chance, or not as good a chance, but he has as good of an argument statistically and just looking at his performance on the court as anyone. And if he can continue to put up these type of ridiculous numbers and this type of ridiculous efficiency, and the Bucks do climb up a little bit and get to, like, second, and as you said, maybe get to the win percentage of the Nuggets, the Thunder, the Clippers, okay, then people might look at it and say, what's the argument not to give it to him besides his coach getting fired? Which the coach didn't get fired because they were losing a ton of games and, like, really, really struggling. They were just not looking up to their potential. So it's not like, I don't know. It's a little bit different type of coach firing than the average coach firing, where you're 17 and 30 and you fire your coach.
Right. I will say one other thing. I mean, he really is a 7 or 8 game winning streak away from being the number 1 seed for the MVP race, I think. I mean, if this Bucks team wins, say, 7 or 8 games in a row, you win 7 or 8 games in a row, and Giannis is putting up these type of numbers in that stretch, then all these talking heads are going to be like, hey, Doc Rivers and the Bucks, look at Giannis's numbers. It looks like he's going to be the MVP this year. They put together 7 or 8 wins in a row, and do it in this type of fashion, how they did to Denver. I think then you're legitimately right in it. But if this continues to be win 2, lose 1, win 2, lose 1 situation, the rest of the year, which is still good, nothing wrong with it, then you really don't get that type of momentum that Giannis probably needs to win the thing. He is Nathan Marzion. Follow him on Twitter at Nathan Marzion. You can follow me at Sparky Radio. Check us out on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page. Like, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications of when we're going live and doing these podcasts, which normally we do them always live. Thursday night, it's Bucks Memphis. Marzion, do we know if we're going before or after the game on Thursday? It's going to be your call, and I'll let you make that call a little bit later in the week. Bucks and Heat tomorrow night. That will be a fun one as well. We'll talk to you on Thursday one way or the other, and then the podcasts are always posted on your Odyssey app or you download your favorite podcast app on Tuesday and Friday mornings. First thing when you get up, you can go download it and listen to it while you work out at the gym or on your way into work, whatever the case may be. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good one. Toodles.